Okay, next up we are learning the S curves in shorthand. So this is a longhand S. If you imagine bisecting it with one of these lines, you get two comma looking strokes here, and that is actually how you write S. There is one S, which is a left motion S, and then there is a right motion S. And either of these marks an S sound, and you'll see why that's important later to have two different ones. But for now, just think of S as these small comma-like strokes. So in terms of proportions, if we compare that to our B, our P, and our S, you can see it's from largest to smallest. You have B, P, and then S. So proportionally, that's what it looks like. For conversely, you have the V, the F, and then the S. V, F, S. Okay, so anytime where you have a short curved stroke like this, you know that it's an S. So let's do some examples here. Let's do the word race. Race would be R, A, S. So that is the S. So we have an R, A, and then S. Let's do another one. Let's do gas. G, ass. Gay, A, S. G, A, and then you have your little S here. Okay, so this is an example of a left motion S. This is an example of a right motion S. And you can see there's different instances where it would be awkward to kind of have a reverse motion S in this case. So that's why you end up having two. So another thing worth mentioning is you'll notice on this sheet here, there is no stroke for the Z character. And that's because for all intents and purposes, you can use an S to denote a Z sound in almost every scenario. So if we take that other example we just had, let's do race. Race. So we have the word race, but we also have the word raise, as in you raise me up. But you'll notice that this is more of a Z sound. So if you spell it phonetically, it's more like this. And so in most cases, the Z can be just substituted out for the S sound. And once again, the context of the sentence can help infer a lot of that meaning. So let's do another example. Gas. We have gas. Consequently, the word gaze, so gas versus gaze, would look very similar. So gaze. And if you really wanted to differentiate the two, shorthand gives you the option of putting a perpendicular stroke to the S sound to indicate that Z. But again, if you can't understand it in context, then you might add that mark. But for all intents and purposes, the S and the Z sounds can be made equivalent. Okay, let's do some examples of our left S. And you can memorize these if you want, or you can just use the following flow that we'll learn here in a second. But basically, before or after the B, P, R, or L strokes, you would use this left S. And after the T, D, N, M, or O, which we haven't learned just yet, so just bear with me here, you would also use a left S. So left S meaning this left motion, comma looking curve. And so you can go ahead and memorize this rule, or you can just follow the logic. So let's take the word sips, which has two left S's. Sip. So written out in Gregg, it's S-I-P-S. Okay, so you have your left hand S there, and then you have your left hand S there. If you think about it, if you have this P here, and then you have to double back on yourself to indicate that S curve, that's challenging to do when writing at speed. It's way better contrast to have a change in direction to help indicate the change in strokes. So similarly up here, you wouldn't have a curve like this, because then you have to double back on yourself and go around, and then you might confuse it for another S in here. So that's why that rule exists. And it's more of a stylistic rule more than anything. It just helps keep your forms flowing. And the more you practice Gregg, the more you start writing it, these rules start to get internalized, and you'll just know it by looking at it. So let's do another word example here. So days. We have days. Days. Can't spell. So D-A-S. Okay? And again, we don't want to turn back on itself necessarily, because you have this weird angle in here. You'll notice that when completing that looping motion, it's very natural to write it with that left-handed S. And if you wanted to do days, then you would just indicate that with that dash, right? At a perpendicular angle. Let's do some more examples. So we mentioned before L. So what that looks like, left hand S, L, for the word slim. Slim. So S, L, E, M. Okay? So again, if you had S, L, M, you could do that. But this just shows better contrast and better indication for an S stroke before the L. And you're not really necessarily changing directions, but you're following the curve, the left-handed motion of both the L and the S in this case. Let's do a couple more. Let's do the word series. So series. Series. So S-E-R-E-S. So we have two left-handed S's in this one. So series, S-S. Okay, again, same thing. You don't necessarily want to be curving back on itself whenever you have these loop and vowel combinations. Let's do maybe one more following this rule. Let's do the word phrase, P-R-A-S-E. Remember, phonetically, this would be more of an F. So how it looks here is F-R-A-Z, phrase. And again, this is written with an S, but you might pronounce it more of a Z. So in this case, it wouldn't be phrase, it would be phrase. But in this case, because it's spelled this way, it doesn't hurt you to mark it, but you would also understand in context that this is phrase. Okay, let's do some examples where we have the right motion S, kind of more of a comma-like stroke. So according to these rules, basically in all other cases where we just reviewed, you would use the right motion S. So I think it's easiest if we just do a couple more examples. So let's do the word saves. Saves. It's got two S's in there, two right-hand S's. So it'd be an S, A, V, S. Okay, again, to indicate the most amount of contrast here, you want to use the right motion S so that you're not adding a V and then an S like that. Okay, so that's saves. Let's do the word seeds. Seeds. So S-E-D-S. So in this case, we have a combination of a right motion S here and a left motion S. So remember from the previous rules, D is one of the strokes where you would use a left motion S. And the more you start to read Gregg and practice it, you'll never see a case, at least with experienced Gregg Shorthand writers, where they write the S like this. It just looks a little bit awkward, doesn't have the right kind of contrast and flow into the next potential letters. So yeah, this is an example of one that uses both right and left motion. Let's do the word snap. Snap. S-N-A-P. Snap. Okay, again, curling back on itself increases the contrast for visualizing the S stroke. Let's do a couple more. Seeks. S-E-K-S. So we have two S's here, both of them right motion. Sketches. Let's do sketches. Sketch as S K, E, che, S. Sketches. Okay, sketches. Both right motion S's. Let's do sages. So S-A-G-S. Okay, sages. Well, right motion S there, and a right motion S there. Okay, now you might be wondering what you do in the case of a SES sound or says. This happens a lot when a word ends with an S sound, but then is made plural. So we take the word sense versus senses. And put simply, you would just combine the left and the right motion stroke, kind of like an elongated S, to indicate that SES sound. You wouldn't need to place the vowel sound in there because, again, it's less efficient. So let's do these examples. So we have S-E-N-S for sense. For senses, we have S-E-N-S, senses. Okay, that's where that blend comes into play. Let's do another one, face. F-A-S versus F-A-S, faces. Okay, faces. So you'll notice that this blend is in the opposite direction as this blend. So it's basically anytime you want to add a plural S, you just double back on the current S that you are writing from and use that to indicate the SES sound. Let's do one more, chance, che, A-N-S, versus chances is che, A-N-S-S, chances. Okay.